Let's do the global update right now. We start with Nigeria. Well, the Nigerian government has today been apologizing for, quote, mistakes made during the burial of President Muhammadu Buhari's chief of staff, Abba Kyari, who died from coronavirus. This is after people were pictured in huddles around the gravesite on 18th of April, not observing strict rules on mass gatherings, social distancing, or personal hygiene. Let's get more on that. Kayla Megwa is with Channels TV, our partners. She joins me from Nigeria. Kayla, it's good to see you in all the brightness that there is in Nigeria. Talk to us more about this rather sad development of the death of the Chief of Staff.
Hi, it's good to be here again. Yes, like you said, I heard you say it's the Chief of Staff died. Now, there's so many things around that situation that were wrong. Okay, we'll start off with the fact that he was in Abuja. There's a strict no traveling. The lockdown means you can't travel out of the city. So the first problem that happened was that when he admitted that he was ill, when we found out that he had COVID-19, he was transported to Lagos. In fact, I was just reading right now, the Commissioner of Health for Lagos State says that where he died was at the first cardiology consultants in Lagos. So that's the hospital that he was sent to from Abuja, which is also a problem because most people, when they fall ill, they're supposed to be treated in the state that they're in. In any case, he was moved to Lagos, stayed at that hospital, died there, and then his body was moved back to Abuja. The reason why I'm giving you this context is so that you can understand the outrage from many Nigerians. Okay, so this whole situation upset so many people. We had situations where people had parties in their houses, and just because social distancing rules were not adhered to, they're punished by the government. So the idea that this, first of all, you were ill here, had to be moved to Lagos, died in Lagos, but he was moved back to Abuja was already a problem for many Nigerians. Then to add to the fact the way his body got into Nigeria, people were at the defense house. They had announced that they weren't going to be condolence visits rather. But at the defense house, we could still see a lot of people huddled there without observing any social distancing. After that, the body was moved to the Gudu burial ground, which is not very far from here. And no social distancing was observed there as well. And we can see that among the people who were at this funeral were people who are government officials. The president, the chairman rather, of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 was there. This is a man who has been talking to everybody about maintaining social distancing, about doing the right thing. He was there. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was at the Defense House. We had so many, almost everyone who comes for the Presidential Task Force briefing was there. And that included journalists as well. So it was very upsetting to watch. Everybody who attended that funeral, I can give you the update now, everybody who was at that burial ground or who was at Defense House has been told not to come into the presidential villa for the next 14 days. That includes journalists, that includes all media. Everybody who was there is not allowed in the presidential villa for the next 14 days. So you can see the ripple effect of this matter. That also applies to journalists who probably don't work in the job, but were there. So many media houses are saying, well, if you were there, because social distancing were not observed, you also have to be in isolation for the next 14 days. So that's the update on that in that area. But you are right. The federal government has apologized. The question is an apology enough? So the federal government apologized for violating social distancing at Abba Kyari's funeral, asking for understanding, forgiveness, saying it's a learning process for them. They've gotten it. And apart from, someone also from the Presidential Task Force is trying to explain that there is no proof that the bodies of people who have COVID-19 are infectious. All right. But like people are trying to point out to the government, this has nothing to do with the body. We know that. Right? But the issue was the fact that no social distancing was observed at a place so critical and full of so many government officials and media who have the potential to spread to so many other people. So that's the situation on that right now.
That's a very interesting development coming up from there. But you say that the defense has been that there is no proof that the body of dead people from COVID-19 has any risk factors. But there is proof that people congregating in one particular place is a risk in itself. Has this been made, has this been put to them for their response as well, those who are making that argument?
Yeah. Actually, it's Dr. Sani Aliyu. Dr. Sani Aliyu is the national coordinator of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. I'm going to read out what he said. He said, I would like to further clarify the issue of COVID-19 and burial processes. Contrary to what on social media, the late chief of staff body was properly prepared for burial according to the NC guidelines and Islamic faith. Please organize COVID-19 as stated by the organization, and I quote, set in viral generally not. That's.
I lost you there briefly, but you are quoting from the person who's making the coordinator, the national coordinator, who is making the point that dead bodies, there's no proof that dead bodies can actually be a risk factor. Hopefully, do take that again for me.
Okay, except in cases of viral hemorrhagic fever and cholera, dead bodies are generally not infectious. That is what Dr. Sani Ali, who's National Coordinator of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, has to say about that.
All right. Sounds like a lot of people will say damage control being done there. But how have Nigerians received this sort of apology?
Well, Nigerians are generally very upset about this. So that's why I gave you the whole background, so you can see where the upsetness, for such a word, is coming from. It's from the beginning of the process. What we're seeing right now, it's a pile-up of so many things that have upset Nigerians about this matter, you know. So yes, a lot of people are very upset about it. They feel like, well, is it that government officials are treated with one hand, then regular Nigerians are treated with another, because, you know, the laws on you know, on social distancing are very strict in Nigeria. So, you know, the idea that that could go on, especially at that level of government, you know, so that was very upsetting. Many people still very upset about that situation.
And so, so this person has been buried. Are the people who congregated being made to mandatorily, you know, quarantine or self-quarantine just so they can watch them, apart from the journalists whose media houses are telling them to stay off work for now? Do we know if all these government officials who were present are actually self-quarantining?
I did say earlier that the presidential villa has stopped everyone who attended that funeral. Yeah. Journalists, government officials, everyone who attended that funeral, they are not allowed into the presidential villa.
But
so let me start from there.
Okay, but are they
personally? But then self-isolating. So that is where the problem is. Because even as I'm speaking to you right now, the Presidential Task Force is briefing at this moment. And a few people who were at that funeral are present there. They were there yesterday. They were asked yesterday, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to self-isolate? If the villa said you shouldn't come into the villa, doesn't that tell you that you should probably stay away from the public eye for a while? You know, that's a question that we haven't gotten an answer to.
Exactly, because it's as if they're just being kept. It's as if it's just being kept away from the presidential villa, of course, which they should. But it doesn't matter where else you go, apart from, as long as it's not the presidential villa, you're allowed to go all over the place.
In fact, they were asked that question. Mr. Boss Mustafa was asked that question yesterday. Everyone who was at the funeral that was present at the press briefing yesterday, and it's actually on right now. I'm looking at it right now. So they were asked, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be self-isolating at this moment? You know, and we haven't gotten an answer to that question yet.
Okay, we'll see how and when that answer comes. But given that the last time we spoke to you, Kayla, an actress, was you know, arrested and charged for throwing a party in her own house. Are any of these government officials facing the same sanctions?
No, they are not. And Nigerians are calling for them to face the same sanctions, because they're saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You cannot punish someone for committing a crime. You commit the same crime and you apologize and we're supposed to move on. So many Nigerians are saying no, an apology is good, but we should also face the same sanctions. We haven't seen that happen yet, but we're watching.
Kela, we'll come back to you and we'll have another detailed conversation. Next time we have a chat, we'd like to look at what's happening as far as face mask wearing, social distancing, and the other things are being observed in Nigeria. Over here, it's become a big deal after our lockdown restrictions were removed. So we'll have to have that conversation the next time we come to you. Kela, thank you.
All right.
Always exciting to talk to you. Kela Mega is with Channels TV, our partners in Nigeria, and she's also a State House correspondent and editor as well.